On this episode of Athletic Training Chat, host Greg Winkleman talks to a former intern that he was with the Denver Broncos, Justin Ullom, and they talk everything becoming an athletic trainer working with football. Justin has been through quite a few different experiences as he continues to work to find the right position for him within kind of the role of being an athletic trainer with a football organization. So a lot of really good information in here talking about pursuing useful and positive opportunities to learn and grow. Talk about the Broncos and the experience that they both had. So definitely worth checking out if that is a route you are interested in going. Both of these guys are younger in the profession, working through trying to get to where they want to be. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Please don't hesitate to check them out for any of your sports medicine needs. They're always innovating. If you've got ideas, they want to hear them to try and help better serve the athletic training profession and do what they can to help us out. But without further ado, please enjoy this episode.
Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. We have Justin Ullom here today. He is one of the fellow interns that I got to do an internship with through the Denver Broncos. So we got really close there. I really appreciated his work ethic throughout that experience. So I'll just kind of speak on his background a little bit and then kind of turn it over to him. So he got his bachelor's at St. Louis University and then got a clinical master's there in athletic training, also at St. Louis. And he's kind of worked in a lot of various job settings, kind of essentially in every level of football now. So we figured we'd bring you this episode to kind of just chat about, football specifically and pursuing a career in the world of football as an athletic trainer. So Justin, if you want to give us a little background.
Yeah. So basically, just to reiterate what you said, got my bachelor's at St. Louis University, and then it was an entry-level master's program, so MAT program there. So 5-year program, and went there. Been in St. Louis my whole life, and then pandemic hit, and ended up moving down to Mississippi for a job. And then after that, took the opportunity to head over to the Broncos for the internship there for the training camp. And then now just working a couple of different jobs out here in Colorado still and living close to family, which is nice.
Yeah, very cool. And I understand, so in Colorado right now, you are doing some high school work and then some kind of EMS stadium coverage as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I am the head athletic trainer for two charter schools, really. And so I'm the head AT for a campus, so the Regis Groff campus up in Aurora. Which is the co-op between the Strive and the KIP Rise schools. And so when they do athletics, they kind of pool all the students from both schools together, get a bigger outing from everybody. And really, I mean, that's been great. I have almost total autonomy. AD really appreciates and understands what we do. And is more than happy to help me out, whether it be budget wise or, if there's something that I really think we should have or we need more of. We've even had talks of switching that position to potentially changing it to almost kind of modeling it after Texas high schools, where there will be some teaching involved and possibly getting a sports medicine class going in one or both of the high schools, as well as athletic training for the athletics department afterwards as well. And then, also doing some work with Stadium Medical. And basically that's been, for the most part, it's been covering club high school rugby sevens. They had their tournament and playoffs and all that stuff. And so covered that. And then also have been covering a little bit of University of Denver club men's and women's ice hockey, some club men's lacrosse, and additionally just doing some basically observation at vaccine clinics. So making sure if anybody passes out or, has any sort of anaphylactic reaction to the vaccine, I'm there along with an EMT to provide any necessary services that they may need.
Oh, that sounds great. That's a lot of responsibilities on your part, but
Yeah, a lot going on.
especially with that high school thing. That's great that you've already formed that relationship and have gotten some very positive results out there.
Yeah.
We'll kind of jump into the first question here. What has your experience been so far with the role of communication in the football setting?
So, I mean, really, it's just that communication is key. I'm somebody who I would rather over communicate rather than not say anything at all. So I'd rather tell you in person, follow it up with a text or an email, and then probably remind you about it the day of. And if you don't get that communication going early, then the coaches never really know what to expect. And so I've had some coaches that they don't want to see you and they'd rather just get an injury report. And that's fine. You kind of have to adapt to their communication. But I mean, the big thing is you just have to communicate. You can't just think everything's going to run smoothly without having that constant open line of communication, whether it's email, text, in person, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with a team of 80, 90, sometimes 100 kids, it's one of those sports that gets you know tricky in a way where you definitely have to form those early communication routes. So
Yeah,
kind of bouncing
absolutely.
off that, I would still say, you're a younger AT to the profession. You've had, a few years of work experience here. Have you noticed any difference in that trust throughout the different settings since you've, had that college level, a little taste of the pros, and then now that high school level?
Yeah, I have. So just kind of depends on where you're at. I initially, especially my first year out, because the first job I had, I actually did a full year of clinical rotation at that college prior to getting a job offer there. And so had an issue with some of the coaches just initially not trusting me 100%. And so, I mean, all that really ended up being was they would just ask more questions, try and get more out of it. And the same thing kind of carried over with the JUCO where they, I mean, it was all harmless. They just wanted to know more information and kind of almost wanted to justify that I knew what I was talking about and why I thought what I was thinking and kind of how long the rehab process would be and all that. And I mean, really, it's just kind of, unfortunately, it differs for everybody. And I think I've been very fortunate in the fact that I haven't had any coaches that just outright don't trust me. But I know, I mean, a lot of the initial trust that you'll get from coaches is based off of their previous experience with athletic trainers. So if they were button heads with somebody all the time, they aren't going to be too trustworthy with you. Or if they think somebody did something wrong, or maybe there was an injury that took too long to get back, that trust is already going to be faltered a little bit without it even being your fault necessarily. So that's just something you have to make up for and do your best to try and gain their trust as fast as possible to make working with them as seamless as possible.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So bouncing off that, what are your primary career goals? And then what steps kind of are you taking or have you taken to achieve that?
Primary career goals are really just anything that involves NFL, NHL, or college. Really love football and hockey, and typically go out of my way to work that if I can. And I mean, really, I took a chance getting the opportunity with the internship just because I did have a guaranteed salary. We were just offered a really decent raise at the JUCO I was at. And on top of that, housing was dirt cheap. They gave us on-campus housing for $250 a month,
Wow.
which, yeah, it was nice. It was really nice. But it was one of those things where being at the JUCO down in Mississippi, it wouldn't get me any closer to my goals of getting to that higher level, the NFL, the NHL, somewhere along those lines. And I had been wanting to move out to Colorado for a while. Just so happened that the Broncos was the internship I got offered. And so it was just one of those things where decided to take the chance, get 6 weeks, try and make some connections as fast as I could, which ended up working out for me. And on top of that, get a little bit closer to family, have that support system out here if, something did end up falling through, which luckily it did not. But I mean, that experience was out of this world. So I definitely still think it was worth taking an internship, even though I knew it was going to be short term, over having guaranteed salary and a guaranteed job for the upcoming year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to that. It was definitely out of this world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was great.
I think both of us really got the most out of it too, and formed some good connections. And that's also why we're talking today, just from trusting each other, really appreciating kind of that same fire that we brought each day. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and you kind of answered my next question here, which would just be, any advice on maybe taking an internship versus a guaranteed salary. But I think that both of us can really attest that if something does kind of fit your career goals, it's worth doing. Especially that guaranteed salary might be very tempting for you, but you can't beat the experience that you get, even if it is 6 weeks or whatever we got there. So anything you can add to that, I guess?
I mean, I guess if there's anybody else going through something similar, right, my advice would be take it. I mean, I'm late mid-20s, still didn't really get the internship opportunity at the same time that everybody else typically does in their career. But I'm still young, still don't have a family, anything like that. Very fortunate to have a long-term and very supportive girlfriend who was all about me taking the internship, even if she knew it would be a struggle. And I mean, yeah, like I said, wouldn't change it for the world. So ended up being the right choice, even if, right now I'm not at the college level or anything like that. I'm still getting a great experience at the high school level, still getting a great experience working with the EMS company. And right now that's enough to just kind of bide my time until there's a job that piques my interest or an opening pops up that somebody refers me for or anything like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds great. So what can you say about the importance of the connections that you made at all these job sites? I know you've had great feedback at that JUCO college. You had great standing with the Broncos staff. I know they definitely appreciated what you brought to the table. You even got kind of that job offer through one of the Broncos, EMS personnel
Yeah.
for that stadium medical. So, how have those connections, helped your career or helped kind of keep you satisfied with your current job setting?
I mean, those connections are everything. So it all goes back to literally being in clinical my last year of school. So was at Lindenwood University, Belleville, over in Belleville, Illinois, for my last year of clinical, which was a full year rotation at a college level for me, and just because they had football. And through there, I met somebody that went to school with Zach and hung out with Zach. And so uh, that was a way to at least get my resume looked at with the Broncos. And then through working with the Broncos, um, met Roger, who is a great guy. And I mean, just awesome to be around and all that. And he is pretty important, some would say, for Stadium Medical. And so he let me know that if I was planning to stay out here, then, to give him a call and throw in an application because they like to use ATCs as much as possible. And he really appreciates and understands what we do just from working with the Broncos for so long, even back when, Greek was around. He said he's been with them for at least 10 years or so, I believe. But I mean, it all would have, none of it would have happened if I wouldn't have had that clinical rotation and just proven who I am in the workplace, what I can bring, my knowledge, my work ethic, just because that clinical rotation got me the job offer at that same college. And then through there, everything kind of fell into place, which has led me to, I mean, it's basically carried me through my employment basically since I got out of college.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great to hear. So what differences have you noticed at the different levels of, you know, being a football athletic trainer? I know you mentioned
Yeah.
autonomy before, but is there anything else that really stood out to you?
I mean, really, it's the access to modalities, the level of additional help you have. So, like at the NAIA college I was at, we were pretty well outfitted with modalities. We had probably 5, 6 game readies. We had 5 or 6 STEM machines. Some of them were comboed with ultrasound units. We had a laser. We had 3 hot tubs. I mean, it was things that normally you would see at a higher end D2, definitely a D1 level, and we had that at what some would consider lower level with NAIA, even though that's not how everybody views it. A lot of those teams can compete with D1 teams. Um, and we had a lot of students. They had their own athletic training program through the college. So we had students who were there who were helping out. They were willing to learn. We had MAT students coming over from my alma mater, St. Louis University, helping out, willing to learn, wanting to know more. And then, I mean, that was a lot, but there was a lot going on. I think at one point that school had 36 varsity sports. I mean, it was absurd. And then at the JUCO, I mean, whittled down to not much. We had one STEM ultrasound combo unit. We had one other just STEM unit that was just, I mean, sounded like a helicopter was taking off when you started it up. Um, but we had that. We didn't have any game ready. It was COVID, so we couldn't use the hot tubs because of the mandates as far as sharing hot tubs and things like that, or the cold tub, the whirlpools. There was only one other certified athletic trainer there, and we still had 10 sports and 2 different campuses. Um, and we had students, but most of them were not going to school for anything related to athletic training. So they were just kind of there. They would get their scholarship money, and really they would just help out with essentially watering things down, carrying things out while taping and things like that were happening before practice, any pre-practice evals, things like that that needed to happen. And then, I mean, change that to the Broncos, right? I mean, you're going from 10 to 150%. They have anything and everything you could want. They have BFR, they have game ready, they have Theraguns, they have H waves, Mark Pros, BioWeight. I mean, it's all over the place there. And then now I'm kind of back down to nothing. I don't have any modalities. I mean, I have a bag of ice if I really need it. But other than that, there's no stem, no ultrasound, nothing like that. So it's just basically stuck with my hands right now at the high school.
Oh, I mean, it's great on you to be able to adapt and, you know, make the most out of everything. You know, I always think, you know, it's great to have those things, but yeah, at the same time, it's nice to kind of test yourself and make things work with what you got. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
it sounds like you're doing a great job with that so far. So, you know, hopefully you can kind of pull on some, you know, pull on some shirts and get a stim unit or something out there soon.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully.
So kind of last question here before we hit you with the AT chat questions. Do you think you would want to work around, you know, football or maybe, you know, the contact sport, for better word, setting for the majority of your career, or do you see yourself kind of phasing out of that?
No, I mean, man, it's tough right now with I mean, being able to handle the long work days and all that stuff. I mean, I could do this easily for another 10, 15 years. But something that has crossed my mind often is potentially switching over to teaching, possibly a clinical education coordinator role, just because I had an amazing clinical education coordinator at St. Louis University. His name's Tim Howe, and he was awesome. Really took into consideration what every student wanted. He was a great teacher in all the classes he taught. He made sure everybody understood what was going on before trying to move too quickly through the class. And then on top of that, he covered men's club hockey at St. Louis University. And he always offered those opportunities out to students if they were looking for extra clinical hours or anything like that. And I mean, that was one of those things where that was the first time I went to a clinical rotation or just a clinical shift or whatever you want to call it. And I walked up and he was like, "Hey, like, have fun, watch out for the flying puck. You're not allowed to say, I don't know. Other than that, I'll be here watching," but that all the players knew to come to me instead of go to him. And he was more so just there as a helping hand, possibly, helping out with further information. And that's a role that I think would be really cool to assume later in my career, possibly, 40 or so, once I'm looking to maybe settle down if things don't go the way that I would prefer or something like that, as far as getting to the level I want to get to. But yeah, he was definitely a big influence for that constantly being on my mind.
Yeah, that's great. I could definitely see you stepping into that role. I could see a lot of college age students going through a program really appreciating that one, but also seeing you as a great fit and a great leader for them to experience those things. So
Yeah.
I
Probably
think
just still have to change the appearance a little bit, maybe cut the hair, trim the beard up.
no way, no way. Hawaiian shirts and all.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so we'll kind of jump right into the AT chat questions here. These are asked of kind of everyone that we host. So the first one would be, where do you see the athletic training profession going in 5 to 10 years?
Honestly, this question was tough because there's a lot of directions that it potentially can head. But I think really I would love for in 5 to 10 years, the advocacy for our profession has gotten to the point of where we don't have to explain what an athletic trainer is to a parent or possibly maybe a primary care doctor that doesn't exactly understand because they haven't had an ortho rotation or anything like that. Um, or just haven't worked in the ortho setting, I should say. And just something where people's initial reaction to hearing athletic trainer isn't that we are a personal trainer that trains athletes. I would love for people in 5 to 10 years just to automatically know, oh, okay, well, they take care of rehab and diagnosis, and they're a great emotional outlet for my student or my son, daughter, if need be. And a lot of that would be working better with PTs and OTs, right? There's some PTs and OTs, for whatever reason, there's a whole bunch of hatred, uh, either to athletic trainers or from athletic trainers towards them. And I think it's just from negative experiences, because I've worked with great PTs, I've worked with great OTs, and there has to be a mutual respect amongst all the professions. So I'd love for it to start heading that way. And then definitely getting a little bit of a better work-life balance. Right now, that's contributing to so much burnout that I think we're losing a lot of good athletic trainers. And if we can get a better work-life balance, have a better understanding, and we don't feel like we have to constantly keep justifying what we're doing and justifying our profession, why we chose it, that would be a great goal for me to see everything kind of shift towards in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, those are fantastic points, and I 100% agree with you on all that. That all sounds, if that can happen in 5 to 10 years, I think the profession is going to be in a very, very good place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next question here would be, what advice would you give to yourself as a young athletic trainer?
You do not have to follow the typical route. Um, I so part of my 5-year MAT program was in the summer between basically your junior year and your senior year, you take gross anatomy. Um, and unfortunately, the first time I took it, I didn't make it. I was about 3 points shy, not 3 percentage points, but about 3 points of getting the passing grade that I needed. And so that kind of bumped me back a year. But I ended up getting 3 minors during that extra years, kind of took advantage of that. One in sports business, one in psychology, and one in interprofessional education. The psychology one really just helps me have a better understanding, I think, of what all can go wrong within an athlete's head after an injury. The best way is to try and keep them in a positive headspace, because we all know when an athlete gets down, their rehab starts to suffer and grades potentially start to suffer. I mean, in a professional education really helped me understand exactly what all my options were when trying to help out the athletes, right? I mean, we worked with imaging techs, we worked with, or not worked with, but in the class we had imaging techs, we had nurses, we had PTs, OTs. I mean, really just, it was all about bringing everybody together and making sure that everybody understood the benefits and when to refer patients to certain people and things like that. And I mean, then sports business one, that was more so just kind of in case I ever wanted to open my own business. But I ended up basically pitching a marketing idea to Anheuser-Busch right out there in St. Louis. And I mean, that meeting went incredibly well for my group. And we got some high level meeting experience, which has kind of helped me be prepared for the higher expectations that other people have during meetings and things like that. And so that was great. And then, I mean, moving on from that, it was just, I mean, I got the internship with the Broncos much later than typical summer interns do. And I even, somebody even remarked to me, well, you know, typically those training camp internships are for students still. That's fine. I mean, it's my goal. It's where I want to end up. And this is the first available step for me to take towards that direction. Why would I not want to take this opportunity? Like, get out of here. Right. I mean, it was, and so it's just, I mean, everything, not everything, but a lot of things about where I've gone have been atypical just because it's turned a 5-year program into 6, got that internship 2 years after most people do. But still wouldn't trade it. It's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, when I look back on meeting you and working with you, it's always been apparent that, you're not afraid to step outside the box and, do your own thing. And I think that's, I mean, that's great, especially in this profession, but it's also just, it's great as a professional period. I mean, you have 3 minors, you've been in a big board meeting with Anheuser-Busch. I mean, not a lot of people can say that kind of stuff. And I think it just attests to your, your ability to just cope with situations, your kind of mindset on just making the most out of every situation. So I think a lot of people can learn from that and, and end up in better situations from doing those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So next question here for you would be, what has been the most influential resource or experience that you have found or, experienced in your career?
Most influential resource has to be my coworkers, just because unfortunately, I mean, I haven't held down a job for too long. But I mean, the coworkers are ever changing. They all come from different backgrounds. They all have different skill bases. They all have different knowledge sets based off of where they went to school. I mean, at the NAI college I was at, that was one of the most fun learning filled environments I have ever been in. We actually had Hawaiian shirt Fridays. And I mean, there was a young staff. They were all super knowledgeable. I don't think any of them were over 35, even the head AT. And everybody was just into supporting each other, making sure everybody's kind of staying up to date on conferences and CEUs and all that stuff. But you're not just going there because you feel like you have to. You're going there because it's an opportunity to have fun, an opportunity to network. I mean, and then at the JUCO, I worked with a phenomenal AT from Florida. He's actually in the ECHL now with the Rapid City Rush. And he educated me a lot on heat illnesses and different little things that he learned, because down in Florida, they are all over making sure that they hammer all of the facts about heat illnesses, just because they experience it much more often than I would have up in Missouri, where it's cold 6 months out of the year. And then even when it's 80 in the morning, it'll be 20 at night for some reason. I mean, it's just, yeah, those experiences, that knowledge I've gained from coworkers and still gain from coworkers is priceless.
Yeah, I really like that answer. I would say I'm in a very similar boat too, of just having the almost the luck to have those great experiences, and then meeting those people along the way that really justify why you're pursuing the things that you're pursuing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as an AT in your role, how do you take care of yourself? This is kind of a work-life balance question for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point it got out, but I really typically like to wake up early. And you found that out from the Broncos. I was typically, I mean, if we were there at 6:30 in the morning, I would be up probably around 2:45, 3 o'clock. And that I've carried that everywhere I go. That's with any job. I always typically wake up about 3 to 4 hours before I have to be there. And that is time for me. So typically I play with the dog a little bit. I feed him, and then I'll play some video games. And once I play video games for a little bit, I'm off to go work out. And that just lets it be much easier for me because when I get back from some of those 12, 14, 15-hour days that we have, I don't have anything else to do. Or if I do, I mean, it's like doing the dishes, which takes 20 minutes. I can spend more time with my girlfriend. I can spend more time with my dog. We can, whether it's hanging out on the couch, whether it's going out to grab a beer, something like that real quick. Um, it feels less rushed when I get back from work, which I am all about. So,
Yeah, oh, that's a great answer. I don't know too many people that would work a what was it, probably 13-hour training camp day, sometimes, and then wake up at
yeah.
45 the next morning. So
Well, it's easy when you're going to bed about a half hour after you get back to the hotel room.
I
But
still thought you were nuts, man. That was crazy, but
that
still
was,
got the energy every day. So I kudos to you. So next one here is, if you could change or eliminate one thing, whether that's modality, kind of a common practice, maybe a mindset, in the field of athletic training, what would that be?
I kind of alluded to it a little bit before, but I would eliminate the poor work-life balance. And I'm not sure if you've had that answer before, and I'm not sure, what the listeners are and the demographic and all that stuff, whether they're young ATs still in school, if they're ATs going through it right now. But any way you can try to either eliminate the poor work-life balance or, I mean, at least alleviate some of the work-life balance issues that you have, that would be key for me. That would be the one thing. I think everything else, I mean, that's fine. Everything has a time and a place, but you need to have good work life balance. I think if we eliminate a poor work life balance, our retention rate for this profession skyrockets. We don't have people leaving it as soon as they start families after only being in it for 6, 7 years. We don't have people retiring early. I mean, I'm in some Facebook groups now for athletic trainers, and at least once a week, it's a post about, hey, I'm thinking about leaving the profession. What are my options? Hey, I'm fed up with, the consecutive 12-hour days nonstop, not being appreciated. What are my options? Um, and it's frustrating just because, I mean, obviously it's not the highest paying profession, but it's fun to be in. You never know what's going to happen. Um, and I think we lose a lot of good ATs due to poor work-life balance. So yeah, I'd really like to eliminate that as much as possible.
Yeah, no, I think that retention rate is huge. We constantly hear about burnout, so that would be a great thing to alleviate, or get some NATA or some other higher up place really thinking about how they can make some changes, and really just advocate for that part of the profession as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So the last AT chat question for you here is, what does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
Um, so for me, being an athletic trainer just means being a hard worker, being knowledgeable, being trustworthy. I mean, you can't, we rely so heavily on relationships that we have to be able to build that trust right away. We have to kind of adapt our attitude and our emotions and all that stuff to cater to each individual athlete in order to get them to trust us faster or as fast as possible. And I mean, I still struggle with that. I've been told I'm too stoic around athletes, which is true. Sometimes I try so hard to be professional around them, despite how I look and my attire today. Try so hard to be professional around them that sometimes I don't let any emotion come through. And so when no emotion comes through on my end, they don't trust me because they think maybe they just are another patient to me. They're not an individual. And lastly, I mean, it's my big thing everywhere I've been is just to always have fun. And I don't know why that's not more common. But I mean, loved having fun. I started the Hawaiian Shirt Fridays at my first job. Loved joking around in the AT room whenever it's appropriate, right? Obviously, you don't do it all the time. But I mean, at the JUCO, we would constantly have, or not constantly, but sometimes we'd have some sort of music going on. I'm a big Disney fan, so we would throw Disney music on sometimes at both the colleges I've been at. Like whether it's bringing in an espresso or something like that for a buddy because it's game day, like, great, let's get after it. Here's an espresso or here's a bang. Like something a little bit to perk somebody up and make those longer days a little bit better.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think everyone can attest that, you definitely sound like a fun guy. I mean, I can firsthand experience, attest to that as well. But, I think, if you do end up going to an ATA convention or, some sort of those bigger networking events, I think a lot of people are naturally just going to be drawn to you, and they're going to want to know your experiences and, hey man, how do you have so much fun as, in the settings that you're in. And I think it's great that you were able to speak with us on that too. So, if anyone recognizes the name Justin Ullom at any, events or networking opportunities, whatever it happens to be, I highly suggest, getting to know this guy. And, you're really going to meet, a fun person, but also someone that's, fantastic for the profession, great work ethic, loves what he does every day. And you can really tell that just from, your first conversation with him. So anything that you want to add, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, there was one thing that kind of came to mind. It was just, I mean, our goals are fairly similar, right? We want to work with NFL to college level football to some degree, right? And I mean, that's success for us, but success for everybody is different. And so it was just, I mean, don't let somebody else's journey influence how you think yours should go. There are some people who they are going to be phenomenal high school athletic trainers, and for them, that is their NFL. And they want to be able to be essentially a pseudo parent to those kids at the high school level. They want to be able to teach them. They want to be able to initiate that next step with their sports medicine classes. There are some that they only want to be here 5 years and then they want to start teaching and maybe just teaching at the college level for the athletic training concept or classes, and that's success to them. So just making sure nobody compares themselves to other people's step-by-step processes.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such an important message to reiterate too. And it's, I don't want to really make anyone angry or anything like that, but I know that our goal, obviously NFL, college level, but I like how you mentioned that some people's high school is their NFL level of success. So I think just making sure that people in the profession really understand that success is really what you want it to be. It doesn't have to be the number after the salary or the the location that job is in, or the professional level. I think that's just such an important message to really bring home, because I see social media posts all the time, just really reiterating the the advocacy for these professional sports, but I have so much respect for, especially at the high school level. I mean, most times you're the only person there providing care.
It's
Uh,
tough, man. It
so,
is. It's a whole new battle.
I have
But
the utmost respect for, a lot of those athletic trainers in those situations where, they can't get an MRI same day, next day.
yeah,
Parents maybe can't, don't have insurance or have the means to get, things like imaging or even a doctor's visit. So there's just so many nuances that I think fit into that level of or definition of success. And I think that that's one thing that we can advocate more of is just being more supportive of those roles and keeping those people happy.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and that's for everything. I mean, one of my brothers is a stay-at-home dad, and to him, that is success. He's got two great kids. He home brews every now and again. He actually just brewed with them yesterday. I mean, the kids are so well behaved. He takes care of the house and all that stuff, and for him, that is success. For me, that's not my idea of success. So, and I mean, for another brother, he's the director of IT for a company, and that is success for him. It's different for everybody. And so it's not a judging thing. It's absolutely like you said, just encourage them. Just be happy for people when they get to somewhere that they want to be. Don't sit there being, well, I don't know why they would want that, or, well, that's not my route. Just be happy for them.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't have anything else to add, I'd like to thank the audience members here that gave this a listen. Hopefully you gained some insight out of this. I thought Justin did a great job here of sharing his experiences and providing a lot of great advice, whether you're a young athletic trainer, student, older athletic trainer, maybe even close to burnout or retiring or whatever it happens to be. Hopefully you can at least take a piece of this episode here and apply it to your situation back home. So
Yeah,
thank you, Justin.
absolutely. Yeah, appreciate you having me on. It's been great.
Yeah, no, it was a great episode, and we at Athletic Training Chat would just like to thank you, and we really appreciate what you're doing, and hope that you continue that success.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Same to you guys.